Hi there, so today we are making raspberry roulade. So what this basically is a soft meringue rolled up with cream and raspberries and a bit of raspberry jam for an extra punch in the middle. Now don't be frightened by the fact it's a meringue. It's not one of those that needs really careful handling, has to sit in the oven for ages. Just be brave with it. That's my best advice. Handle it firmly. It will be absolutely fine. So the first thing we need to do is put the oven on, which I've just done. So check the recipe download for the temperatures according to your type of oven. Then we need to separate our eggs. Now I'm going to mix it all in this bowl, but I'm going to separate the eggs first. And if we do this one at a time, if we do break a yolk, we've not ruined the whole lot. So I'm going to start by giving it a firm tap, and then the way I do it, and there are many ways to do it, is to tip the yolk backwards and forwards between the two halves of shell. Then you've got your yolk, the shell. If you get any shell in there, and actually there's a bit there, if you use half the shell to fish it out, it will happily cut through the white and scoop the bit of shell out for you. So then I'm just tipping that into the bowl I'm going to use for mixing it. And that means now if I ruin this egg, I haven't ruined that egg. So I'm just going to carry on now and separate the rest of them. So each time the successfully separated white is going into the big bowl, and that's the bowl I'm going to mix the meringue up in. So that's 3 down. Number 4, fingers crossed. And finally, number 5. Again, just be brave with it. If one yolk does break, you can't use the white because it will stop it sort of fluffing up properly. There we go. So just rinse my hands there. So what I'm going to do now is whisk those until they are really stiff, and I'll show you what they look like. Today I'm using my hand electric mixer. So this I bought from a supermarket. It was about £15. You don't need to splash out on a huge stand mixer. I get my money's worth out of mine because I make cakes all day, every week. But this is a really great place to start. So it'll take a good few minutes to go from liquid up to like a foam. And then we start to add the sugar after that. So in about 2 minutes of fairly high speed whisking, we have this. Now it's really bright in the kitchen here today because the sun is out, but hopefully you can see, there we are, you can see the texture of it. It is really like foam. So what we start to do now is add the sugar. I'm going to do it in 3 or 4 batches and whisk it well in between, and it will start to go glossy. Keep going until all the sugar is added, and then whisk more at the end. That's one lot. Second lot. Third. and there's the final lot, is make sure that it's combined. Okay, so all the sugar is in there and you'll see that it's starting to thicken, but at the moment it's still quite runny and we need it to be really stiff. So when you lift this out, it's not runny or wobbly or drippy at all. It's just stiff. So I'm going to mix that probably on full for about 2 whole minutes, which doesn't sound very long, but when you're standing here and your arm's aching, it's actually quite a good mix. So that's what you need to do. And then I'll show you what it looks like in the end. So here's how it looks. If you lift it out, you get a pointy bit, but it's not wanting to run back into the bowl. It's pretty stiff, look. It's not running back into itself. You can make a pattern in it and the pattern stays. If you can see that, I will try. There we go. So it's good and thick, basically. You see how it's taking some scraping to get off that. It's not just running back in to your bowl. That's probably a good indicator. There we go. So what I have now is a tray baked tin. This one's 12 by 9 inches. I use this for all kinds of things. And I've got a piece of greaseproof paper that's quite a lot wider than the tin. I haven't greased the tin, then it might not even need washing afterwards. Press this into the tin, into the corners. The overlap will help us lift it out later, and that's good enough. And then scrape the mix. Can you see the texture, consistency? It's lovely and shiny. That's what you're looking for. It might be hard to see on this video, but it is nice and thick and shiny, like really thick, shiny shaving foam. Just spread it out into the corners, down the sides. You do want it as flat as possible. It will help with the whole overall rolling up later. Certainly don't leave it domed in the middle. If anything, you want it higher at the sides because the middle will rise. So it's okay if it's a bit lower in the middle, but you don't want it higher in the middle because then it's harder to roll up. So I've just spread that evenly and that is ready to go in the oven. So read the oven instructions carefully because you'll see that it goes in at the full temperature for 10 minutes. Then you need to turn down the oven to a lower temperature for the rest of the cooking time. This gives it, I think, I'm no scientist, but it'll crisp on the outside and then needs to be a bit lower to cook through. You're looking for a slight golden brown, but not too brown because then it will taste burnt. So once the peaks and the edges are starting to go a golden colour, you're just about done. But I will show you that when this one comes out. So whilst that's in the oven, I'm just preparing everything to assemble it once it has cooled. It won't take that long to cool down, so you can just get a few bits ready. So what I've got here is 300 mils of double cream in a big bowl. So just in a tub like this, in a big bowl to give you room to whisk it without making too much mess. I've got some more greaseproof paper on a cooling rack. I've got some raspberry jam in a bowl. The reason I've put it in a bowl and not taking it straight out of the jar is I can give it a good stir, get rid of any lumps, because it tends to sort of go a bit jelly-like, but we need to be able to drizzle it. So you just mix the jam like that. It's just a bit runnier and that will help later on. and the serving plate. So I've washed my mixer paddles, and I'm going to whisk the double cream until it's pretty thick. Now, double cream at some point changes from nicely floppy, sort of soft texture to almost grainy. So watch out for that. Once it starts to change, turn your mixer off and just finish it off by hand. It'll come together very quickly. So I'm going to do that now. There we go. Now that's not running, it's suddenly gone sort of, I would say solid, but it's still soft. If I get a spoon, you can just see it will fall off a spoon, but not run off a spoon. So that is ready. The meringue is still in the oven, so I'm just going to pop that in the fridge and wait now. We are set up for when it comes out. Of course, I didn't mention the raspberries. Now, you can use fresh raspberries. It depends on the time of year as to what you want to pay, where they're coming from, how you feel about that. I'm going to use frozen today. You can use exactly the quantity you need, and the rest in the freezer for later. So if you want to assemble and eat your roulade pretty much straight away, defrost your frozen raspberries first. Otherwise, you can just pop them in frozen and they'll defrost over an hour or two between making it and maybe eating it that evening. So I've got these ready. I'm going to leave them in the freezer because I'm going to pop them in frozen when everything is baked. So here it is. It has gone a slight golden colour. It has puffed up ever such a lot, but that's fine. This is why we leave a good amount of baking paper overhanging at the edges, so it hasn't stuck to the tin. What I'm doing is just checking it's not stuck anywhere. Any little bits that overhang might stick to the tin. So just have a look all the way around that it's nice and loose. What we're going to do, this is where you have to be really brave, is tip the whole lot upside down onto there. Now, my family say I've got asbestos fingers. I don't mind things that are hot. If you've got sensitive hands, get a good pair of oven gloves on, because what you need to do is put your hand underneath and just go for it. There we are. It missed a bit on the corner, but we'll sort that out later. You've just got to go, otherwise it'll break up even more. It will break up, but it doesn't matter. Then we carefully peel off the backing paper. It might stick a little bit. This is where you can panic and think, I've ruined it. But honestly, it is fine. The overall look when it's done is cracked. So who cares how many cracks there are? There we go. So you peel the back off. Just have to work your way along, leaving as much behind as you can. There we are. Get rid of that. So yeah, there are holes, there are cracks. That's how it's supposed to be. Don't worry at all. Just kind of push it back together again. Squidge any holes together if you can, just to stop too much cream escaping, but you know, that's how it's supposed to be. So as you can see, it looks a right mess, but that is okay. And when it's completely cold, I'll show you how to roll it up. So here we are ready for the fun part. This is now completely cold. So I've got my cream, my raspberries and my jam. So the first thing to do is spread the cream all over the meringue. There we go. I like to use a palette knife. It's angled. It's just quite nice. It's what I'm used to with my cake making, but you don't need one. Just use the back of a spoon or a normal knife. You want to get it right to the edges and as evenly as you can. Not too thick at the edges, you don't want it all to squish out, but whoever gets that first slice, they want some filling as well. There we go. Now what should we do next? The jam, you don't have to use the jam, but it just gives it an extra sort of punch, really. There's no science to this. I'm a big fan of just throwing things together, not getting too hung up about it. It's all going to be rolled together anyway. But then everybody will get a little extra zing with that jam. And then we've got the frozen raspberries. Quantity wise, maybe a punnet. If you've got one of those really large punnets and some left over from something else, choose those, or put a whole big punnet in. It's up to you. Obviously the cost goes up the more raspberries you use. You could save a few and serve them on the side with each slice. Spread them evenly anyway, so everybody will get a bit. And then what quite often happens in these bags of frozen is that you get these little, the tiny bits at the bottom, and they work really well in between the big ones. So you dig down to the bottom. There we go. How's that? Maybe a few more. Great. Goes that way. So then you've got to be brave again. So we're going to roll it up. I'll do this from your side so you can see. We're going to roll it up from one end, and we're going to use the paper to help. Now, if you just score a bit of a line, it helps you get going. So the first thing to do is just get that end over, and you're just squishing it. Okay, so you see there, if I come this way a bit, and keep going. So you're using the paper, work your way along. See, it's gradually rolling up. Don't be frightened of it, and don't try and roll it too tight. It will just, once you get going, you're all right actually. Keep gently just pressing it together. Can you see it's all cracked? That's how it's supposed to be. I'm going to get it onto this plate. So that's sort of gone round once. It's not like a Swiss roll. All you need is for it to all hold itself together. Now, if we get that towards the edge, this is the plate I want it on. Just use this paper to help you sort of move it around. And then we're just going to slide it with the join is here, and that's going to go underneath, or at least towards the bottom, and the weight of it will help it not start to unravel. Slide this out. And there we go. Oh, sorry, that was a horrible noise. So there it is. It's huge actually. It seems to have risen a lot this time. It's cracked. It looked a right mess before we started, but that's how it's supposed to be. So don't be put off the way it comes out of the oven. Made a mess here, but never mind. So if you have an icing sugar shaker, like this one, you can decorate it. There we are. And that will go in the fridge. It will firm up a little bit in the fridge. That will do it good. The whole meringue will chill through. So if you're serving it as a dessert at a dinner party, make it that morning or even the day before. You might want to cling film it in the fridge because it has a habit of picking up strong flavours. So I can't think of an example, but depending what's in your fridge, you might be better off covering it, but just cling film loosely in the fridge overnight. You can also freeze the whole thing. See the recipe for details on freezing it. You can slice it up and freeze it. So again, it's a way of getting ahead. Make it for a party that you know you've got coming up in a fortnight's time. Just defrost it in the fridge overnight, the day before, and then it'll be ready to serve. And that's it really. And you'll also see in the downloadable recipes some other ideas of what you might put in the middle. So if you want a different flavour, don't go hunting for another recipe to learn from scratch. Have a think about what you can do with this one. For example, there's a lemon version, there's a Nutella version. You could decorate the top, you could serve it with chocolate ganache or cream, even a hot custard, that kind of cold meringue hot custard, a bit like one of those 1970s trifles. I remember my granny serving like a hot and cold trifle. So yeah, there you go.